guys. Happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Thanks for joining Just Us Chatting. I'm Tamara.
I'm Michael, and today we have an apology, or at least I do. I know I was a little particularly outraged yesterday. It was early in the morning, and we hadn't seen any more of the evidence coming out of the dust-up, the social media dust-up concerning
The MAGA kids.
the MAGA kids and Nathan Phillips. So as the day went on, a lot, more information came out, and I don't like to be a cynical person. I don't want to be constantly questioning I don't want to be constantly questioning the intentions, of what I'm seeing. But I think we're living in a world where you have to.
Yeah.
And not because necessarily everyone's intentions are bad, but because we see the world in such vastly different ways.
Mm-hmm.
That the person who is filming this and presenting this may have actually seen it. They may have experienced it the way that they are saying that they experienced it, which was there's this horde of kids around this guy, and they're all glaring at him and mocking him and stuff like this, and
and they see,
when it's presented in that light,
yeah,
you look at it and you go, okay, yeah, wow, this is horrible.
Obviously, these people are horrible. These kids are so racist.
Yeah, and it's easy to just kind of jump to that conclusion and kind of swim along with it.
Yeah.
But we link to. I don't want to go too far into it, but we link to a great short dissection of this by Tim Pool. Does really good journalism. Tim's from Chicago. He's from my old neighborhood, and so he's got a good breakdown. He went through hours and hours and hours worth of video to kind of see what was going on.
Yeah.
And he did. He put together he broke it all down in a 10 or 15 minute video where it's well, here's some important kind of pieces to look at. So you don't have to watch the full video, but he also links to the full video if you just want to fact check him too.
Yeah.
So he's I liked him. He's a good source. But
he talks more about the context of things.
Yeah, he's a journalist.
Mm-hmm.
He's I don't know if he's ever had any but he's really good about not jumping to conclusions. He's really good about trying to stay objective, and really good about being trying to get more facts before he says anything. And so to me, that makes him a better journalist than half the journalists on television these days.
Yeah.
But I thought that in light of the fact that it's Martin Luther King Day, we might want to stop for a moment and talk about how easy it is to jump to assumptions like that.
Yeah.
How easy it is to assume the worst in people,
mm-hmm.
and to look at people and just judge them.
Yeah.
Because from everything that came out later in the day, it seems, if you look through all the video, it seems pretty clear that these kids were they didn't approach anyone.
Yeah.
First of all,
they were standing there waiting for their bus when these guys came kind of into their group.
Right.
Started kind of slowly making their way through the group.
Right.
Sort of like.
And it seems like what happened was there were some people there who were shouting slurs at the kids in the MAGA hats, and asking them. There's one of the kids from the high school was black, and they were, they were asking, they were saying things about him, and it was not pretty.
Were these guys these black Israelites or something?
Yeah, they're not. I'm not sure what kind of group they're from, but they were
very vocal, very boisterous.
Very vocal, and they seemed like some sort of fundamentalist. They were very upset about homosexuality. They were.
Yeah.
They seemed.
Yeah, they called Trump, the F word. Well, the
other F
the
word.
slur of homosexual. and they were
don't you mess with that cord,
Morphe. Come
Go over there.
Come over here.
You want to come up?
Come on. Come on.
So
they were they were very fundamentalist, whatever their religion was. It seemed like it was related to Christianity, but maybe.
Yeah, I
don't know.
I could look it up. That's not. The point is, there were some people that were saying some pretty nasty things in their direction. The kids started chanting their school chants, like football team chants or something.
Yeah.
Pep
Well, I
rally
think
type
they were
chants.
doing that before these guys came and were messing with them. That's apparently they were chanting school chants to kind of pass the time because it's something that they do.
Yeah.
That's
well,
what I thought I
you
heard.
can see them in the video. They're not. The other thing is, these kids weren't doing Trump 2020 or build that wall or anything like that.
Not that I could hear from any of the videos.
I mean, there's like 3 hours of video, like live streaming. Just
yeah.
You know what I mean? And CNN didn't find anything going
Yeah.
through it. They didn't find any evidence that actually happened.
Yeah.
So the idea that these kids were down there being political along those lines, which I bought hook, line, and sinker.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday I remember saying, these kids are down here for the March of Life and they get into a confrontation over the wall. Nothing had anything to do with the wall. So
along the lines of not judging people before you know all the facts, it's also easy to take what other people say at face value and just believe that what they're presenting to you is true and that the way that they're presenting it to you is that way. And so we need to be careful, especially in this day and age, to not, we also, need to not judge people, but also not, just assume that what they're presenting to you is like the full truth.
Right.
And that, we can just easily be reactionary towards what we're seeing and assume that what we're looking at is, actually kind of the intention of the person that is in the video.
Yeah.
We need to be so careful.
And I tend to, I don't want to be cynical, but I tend to be the type of person who, if I see a news, and this is, it's really sad that it has to be this way, right? It's really sad that it has to be this way.
Yeah.
But 9 times out of 10, obviously yesterday I didn't do it, but 9 times out of 10, if I see someone being called a racist, I go, well, I don't think you're probably lying.
Yeah.
That's my almost my default position these days is if I hear somebody, in the news saying, "Oh, these people are racist."
Yeah.
I almost always have to go look that person up.
Yeah.
You know, and that's part of the reason that I guess I kind of feel sick of doing that. It's part of the reason I probably didn't go, look deeper into this one before I said anything about it, but it was also really fresh and really new and I didn't know,
And the thing is, you don't always have time, to look
do
into things as much as is required to find out the full truth.
Right. Yeah. So we've got lots of people. This is the fact that major news outlets ran with this. Is really disturbing. Because if you look at the whole video, it's basically, if you look at the whole, if you actually spend time and go through it. It's a video of a small group of extremely zealous African American religious kind of zealots yelling at a group of high school kids who then start doing pep rally cheers, and then a group of Native Americans comes in and starts drumming in front of them, and then they all walk away and go their separate ways. The bus shows up, they leave. That's it. Nothing happens really. Nothing. Just some people yelling, and it's Washington D.C. It's politically contentious. There's people, but it's just a bunch of people who are there interacting, and basically nothing actually happened.
Right. Yeah, and then.
But you get a little clip of it, and you frame it as, a bunch of racist white kids surround a Native American elder and disrespect him. Yeah. And then if that's you can sell that story. And
I'm not saying that they were being appropriate in the way they responded to him coming into their group and drumming. Yeah. It still seemed like, their chant, the way that they were trying to join in felt a little like less than kind of respectful. It definitely felt sort of mocking, or kind of like, you know, they're young kids, they're having a fun time. Like, they're definitely not being respectful in the way that they're kind of joining in the hoopla.
Yeah.
And, you know, they probably have never experienced this kind of thing before. So, but I don't think there was like malintent, you know, I don't necessarily think there was malintent. And according to the kid himself, who was standing there staring at the guy, he was trying to defuse the situation, and apparently he was like saying a silent prayer or something. And who knows? I mean, he could be lying.
Yeah. Well, there's also video. Like, his statement is that he saw somebody starting to. His statement was that he saw somebody, or at one point he kind of like motioned to somebody to kind of back off and stay away, and, you know, just kind of like everyone kind of chill
like give
out,
some space.
And there's actual video that showing him doing that at one point in this you know, standoff where he's just kind of like back off.
Yeah.
You know, and he's just trying to. It looks, when you see it from other angles, it does look like, okay, it's very reasonable to assume that this kid was actually trying to diffuse tensions and just stand there and be peaceful and not do anything.
And that's the thing, is like, when it's presented one way, it's easy to look at his facial expression and think that that's the way it is. But when I initially watched the video and I initially saw him smiling and looking at the elder, I was kind of unsure. I was like, that's interesting. Is he just standing there smiling and being peaceful? Or is he trying to be kind of like smug and as I watched it further, and as I was seeing people presented in the way that they're mocking him and all that, then I was starting to be like, he's mocking, and you know, he's just like trying to show do a show of force, or not force, but kind of like a show of like, I'm just
superiority or
something. Yeah. So it's easy to, when people present things a certain way, it's easy for you to kind of be like, that does seem like that's the intention.
Right. It's very easy to build to kind of construct the case in your mind for whatever your impression might be.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very easy to do that.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to recognize. I don't know. You know, we're.
Sorry.
Today's a national holiday celebrating a man who believed in. Recognizing people for the content of their character rather than the color of their skin. And I worry that he'd be really disappointed in our society right now.
Yeah. And the fact that this was used as like almost like a political ploy to be like, look at, you know, how horrible these Trump supporting kids are, you know, and look at all this racism. You know what I mean? It's like everything is being used against people. Everything is being used as a political ploy.
Yep.
And it's really sickening.
Yeah, it's pretty gross.
And I'm not saying everyone who presented this in that manner is, but I have a feeling that mainstream news like CNN and all that, and the people that, you know, should know better, like they're using this. They're totally using this to be like, they were.
You know, I mean,
you know,
I have to give props. Like, CNN came out. This is a story from TNN. Where I guess I don't really have to give props,
but
because
they did kind of change.
At least they're putting it out there. Let me show you what we're looking at.
Oh yeah.
It says teen in confrontation with Native American elder says he was trying to defuse the situation. So they use the word says instead of claims, which is it's
That's
good,
yeah.
right? Like they use the word claims, then there's a little bit of a passive aggressive thing there. But they could just say teen in confrontation with Native American elder was trying to defuse the situation.
Yeah, but they don't know.
They don't know.
So they kind of have to say.
So they're saying what he says. Okay. Yeah. Good. And they do come in here and they say at one point, I'm not going to say this person's name, a student at the University of the District of Columbia participated in the Indigenous Peoples March earlier that day. She said the teens were chanting things like Build the Wall and Trump 2020. Those chants were not audible in videos reviewed by CNN.
Yeah.
But then, they go right on. I did not feel safe in that circle, she said. So, the person who shot the video describes the atmosphere as tense. You know, they're obviously still framing this from that side of the from that side of the story.
Yeah. Yeah, but let's see. I was not intentionally making faces at the protester. I did smile at one point because I wanted him to know that I was not going to become angry, intimidated, or be provoked into a larger confrontation. I am a faithful Christian and practicing Catholic, and I always try to live up to the ideals my faith teaches me, to remain respectful of others and to take no action that would lead to conflict or violence. So that's obviously that kid. And then he cautioned against rushing to judgment based on the short time captured on the videos and encouraged people to watch longer clips available online, quote, as they show a much different story than is being portrayed by people with agendas, he said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
So I stand corrected, and I'm sorry to that kid, because I don't truly know what his intentions were. And
nope.
If he's going to say this, I'm going to believe that, he did have better intentions than I originally thought.
Well, and I've seen the longer videos too, and I see much more evidence for the idea that it wasn't as simple as it, you know what I mean?
As
like
it was made out to be.
As it was made out to be.
Yeah.
And these...
And I didn't hear any of those kids chanting that. Like, in all the video clips I watched, I did not. Now, again, they still did kind of have a mocking look in their face. They kind of, like, there was something weird about it. It was definitely still, like, this weird mob kind of, like, I don't know, they were getting, like, riled up, and it was weird. I definitely was, I'm still not sure about it. But I also don't think that they were necessarily trying to be, like, malevolent towards this guy.
I don't think that it's the same. I just don't think it's the same thing as the story that this group of, rambunctious white teens went and found some Native American and surrounded him.
Right. Well, we know that's not what happened.
That's absolutely not what happened. Yeah. But that was, that was the way the story was framed at first. And so, it makes a difference.
Yeah.
These, this kind of context makes a big difference. And I keep. That's the first time I've believed that what I was seeing was really like, an instance of racism.
Yeah.
Like, it's the first time I believed that in a long time.
Yeah.
Because I've seen a lot of these kinds of situations where, oh, this is racism. And then, you look a little more and it's like, well, okay, that's not really the way it happened. Right. Or people like, oh yeah, this person, was, with the person with the MAGA hat, tore my
burqa off or something, or
not burqa,
or what was it?
Hijab, yeah. Right.
Sorry, the burqa's
this
the
kind
whole,
of thing, yeah.
The full one, right?
So and then it's like, well, that actually didn't happen. She
right.
did that to herself, and like it's just this concocted story. It's like these kinds of things. You see these kinds of outrages, and they're manufactured and they're lies. And I've seen so many of them. I mean, obviously, what happened in Charlottesville was not manufactured. It was not a lie.
No.
But a lot of stuff since then has been, and it's gotten to the point where it's just kind of like, Jesus, I can't trust when they tell me that somebody's like Representative Steve King, right? This guy from Ohio who's like, he said things like, "What's wrong with white nationalism?" Like, and he's he's in Congress.
Well,
I mean,
maybe,
Jesus.
Well,
no, no, just no. But like, I have to go and look.
But
I have to go find out.
Is he truly racist, or?
You can't ask what's wrong with white nationalism.
Well, because what I'm thinking, maybe, I guess.
Why are these phrases? No, you can't.
Yeah, I know you shouldn't for sure. But I'm just wondering, like, does he think that it just coincides with like being proud of one's country or something, or I guess white nationalists. Yeah, you can't.
Yeah.
But if he had asked like what's wrong with nationalism,
that's a different thing.
It's a little bit different. It's a bit different. I'm still like not a fan of people who are like so proud of their country. It's like you didn't do anything to like make it. I mean, maybe you've done some things.
Well,
but
the idea is that we all contribute in our own way, right? And so like, being proud of your country, I think is fine.
Yeah.
We all we all have to kind of pitch in to make the society reasonable and good.
Yeah.
So I think, being proud of the society that we've created in that way is reasonable. But
I mean, I feel grateful to live in and be from the U.S.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I'm proud of the or you know what I mean? Like, that doesn't mean I'm like, oh, I'm so proud of being from here. I'm just grateful for it because there's so many opportunities, and like, it's so...
There's a difference between being proud. I think there's a difference between being proud, like, in kind of in an arrogant way, right? Where, you know, I'm great because I'm from America.
Sure.
And being proud because in kind of a humble way, which is like, I'm so proud of all the people in my country who have come together in all these amazing ways to keep the lights on, and
true.
And you know, work together to alleviate suffering and be, you know, in communion and community with each other, you know. So to be proud of your nationality in that way is something entirely different than just to be, you know, like, arrogantly, you know, saying, yeah, America's awesome because, you know, so I'm awesome. Like, it's like, no, it's not how that works. The other way around. Like, if you're awesome, you help make America awesome. But if you suck, you don't have any right to be proud of, you know, the fact that you're American just because you're from here.
Well, there's probably some in between.
But yeah, it's like, but anyway, I think it's like I was saying, it's the first time I've kind of rushed to judgment like that in a long time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you have people like Representative Steve King, right? And I think that's part of the reason that he gets into office, because he is, like, you know, he's putting up smoke screens literally putting up smoke screens for white nationalists. Like, oh, why is white nationalism a bad thing? Oh, why do we have to, like, really? We have to, like, explain why segregation is bad? To explain why segregation is or like this is a question that you want to start asking now?
How old is this guy?
He's like 50. He's in his 50s.
Oh, he's okay. I just wondered, like,
he's a real adult. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I just meant, like, is he older and he's like from a different era where it was like,
he might be in his
okay
60s. He's an older white man, but like, he's the point is, you know, the reason somebody like that gets into office is because the left is the boy who cried wolf at this point. The left is going racist, 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 racist everywhere.
Yeah.
Right? And eventually you just kind of go, yeah, sure, he's a racist, whatever. And then, like, the guy's in office and he's saying stuff like, what's wrong with white supremacy? You're like, why should we be upset about white nationalism? It's like, this guy's in office now? How'd that happen? Well, it happened because nobody believes you when you say that he's racist anymore.
Yeah.
Nobody believes it. And so, you know, I was like, you know what? This looks bad. This looks bad. There's a bunch of white kids surrounding this guy. It looks bad. And it's like, you know, 1 minute of video. Yeah. And I was like, you know what? I'm pissed off. This is bad. If this is racism, I'm mad. And, you know, and I got mad about it. And I constructed the narrative in my own mind, and I ranted about it on our live stream, and I was pissed off. And then later on in the day,
Tim was the voice of reason.
Yet again, it comes out, oh, there's more to this story. It's not just a bunch of, you know, 1950s Southern white people in a diner surrounding some, you know, minority, you know, who's just expressing his rights. It's not that. We're not there. That's not what we're living through. People who are trying to appropriate what actually happened in this country and kind of say, look, it's the same thing. No, it's not. It's just not. And these consistent lies about it. Yeah. That's why we have Representative Steve King currently. Because if they weren't lying about it so frequently, then they could say, look, that guy's talking about white nationalism. Everyone would be like, really? Holy shit. And they'd go find out, and they'd go, yes, you're right. He is. Right? But now you got the left going, look, that guy's actually talking about white nationalism. And people are like, yeah, right.
Yeah.
I'm not
said that so many times.
I'm not wasting my time. You like, check. You know what? I'm going to vote for him just because he's being attacked by you.
Yeah.
Like, that's what happens, right? That's what ends up happening.
Yeah.
We're sick of the lies.
Yeah.
These smears. It's so terrible for our social discourse.
Yeah. Yep.
Anyway, that's me being, you know, pissed off about being fooled yet again about whether or not something that came up in the media was actually racist, it's like, it's just. So anyway, I wanted to let that out because I, ranted about it yesterday about how horrible these kids were and how they were smug and condescending and terrible people, and I was wrong.
Yeah.
At least I was like certainly overreacting based on not enough information and buying into a narrative that was very partial.
Yeah.
I mean that's the very best I can say about my actions yesterday. So.
Hey, at least we can admit when we're wrong or when we've been wrong, and I think that's a good thing.
Yep. So wanted to start with that, and then I think it's kind of apropos that this is again happening on a day where we're all celebrating a man who was dedicated his life and died for the cause of kind of colorblindness,
Yeah.
and we're the idea that we should all be treated as individuals. This is the fundamental American ideal, that each human being has a soul. Martin Luther King was a preacher.
Yeah.
He believed in the dignity of the human spirit. He believed in the dignity of the human soul. Each of us had a soul that didn't have a color, right? That each of us had a soul that was unique and beautiful and loved by God, and that was what was important about us, right? That it was that eternal soul that was the important feature of every human being.
Yeah.
And that these immutable characteristics were just packaging in a way. You know what I mean? I mean, like obviously we've got our differences, and our differences are beautiful, but they're decoration.
Yeah.
Because what's fundamentally real about us isn't a color. It isn't a culture. It isn't a performance. It's not an expression, right? Our fundamental reality is underneath all that, and it's there's a spiritual essence to every human being that is part of the same, made of the same thing. We're all made of the same spirit.
Yeah.
In that way.
Yeah.
And to see where we're going, where it feels like we're going in the modern world, where we're kind of regressing into identity, immutable characteristics as identifiers. Say, well, as a white woman, as a gay man,
right.
we talk to each other as identities,
right,
instead of just human.
When in a way it's like it's such a small part of who we are, or it's just one part of who we are, and it's like it's not anywhere near the full truth of who we are.
Yeah, it's really reductive.
Yeah.
It's really reductive, and it kind of it's almost a celebration of stereotypes. Right? I mean, they're like self-imposed stereotypes. If you're listening to the voices of the marginalized, you're listening to the voices of whoever, right? You need to listen to the voices of the people who haven't been listened to in the past. So they're self-imposed stereotypes, but like
not all.
No, I know, but I mean it's a celebration of even if you say okay, well we're not gonna say anything about gay men anymore, and we're just gonna let the gay men tell us what it's like to be gay men, right?
But it's like they don't all have the same experience.
They don't all have the there's not a fundamentally real thing about gay men.
Right. There's not like a gay men club that is like they all experience the same thing. They all have the same beliefs. They all think the same way. It's like, no. I've met plenty of gay men, and they all are kind of different, They're all...
Human beings vary widely.
Right.
They're just like we're not, so even if you say, well, we need to hear the voices of the people, it's like, okay, well, you're still formulating, even if they're in groups, even if they're stereotypes that formed by the in-group, it's not like everyone in the group conforms to those stereotypes, and we're still celebrating stereotypes. So, you know, you've got people like Larry Elder, or David Webb. This was a thing the other day. David Webb is a black conservative radio host, and, you know, last week sometime, somebody called in and to interview and talk with him, and she was a black woman who was also a journalist, and she accused him of white privilege.
But she didn't recognize that he was black?
She didn't know that he was black.
Jeez.
She didn't know that he was black, right? And so she, like, because he's a conservative, he's white?
Right.
Right?
Well, that's the narrative. That's the
narrative,
idea.
right? So
that's why the left gets so outraged when there are gay people that are right-wing or black people that are right-wing. That's why they get so, like, infuriated, because they're like, that's not the way it's supposed to be. You're supposed to be with us.
Yeah, it's like we want diversity, but not that kind of diversity.
Right. Not diversity of thought.
You're way over there off the, well, anyway.
Yeah. But I remember briefly hearing about that. That's crazy. So what did he say?
He was like, I hate to break it to you, I'm black. And she was like, well, I blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It was hilarious to listen to.
She had nothing to say.
It's hilarious to listen to. You know, so, let me apologize. You know, my people. And, you know, I mean, the basic point is, apologize for what? For not knowing his skin color? Like, why don't you apologize for trying to utilize his skin color to deny his thoughts? That's what you should really try to, you know, that's what should really be apologized for in that situation, right? So it's like,
there's a little hair.
Yeah, mustache hairs in my mouth. So, you know.
Yeah.
And then
insane.
There's all sorts of weird, like, down the rabbit hole, inside out stuff, like, that I've been thinking about, you know, like, that's one of them too, where you know, it's kind of, I was raised to believe that, and here's the other interesting thing, it's like, I think that white privilege in a predominant, I mean, I think it's wrong to call it white privilege, because it doesn't exist for white people.
It's majority. It's like majority privilege, right?
It's a privilege of being, you know, normative.
Right.
You know, whatever.
So like we didn't have that when we were living in Ecuador. You know, I mean, we didn't have white privilege, other than the fact that yes, even though we're not that wealthy, we were wealthier than a lot of the Ecuadorians.
Right. But that's wealth privilege.
Right, that's
right.
different. That obviously over there we had it. Over here we totally don't. Right. And even there we were kind of on the lower end.
But there were Asian people with more money than us, and black people with more money than us, and more money than the locals.
And
so they were all kind of Westerners, or, you know.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, like, we were a total minority there, and like, so in that culture, we were the ones that were constantly getting stared at and kind of like, you know, people are kind of like looking at you like, I wonder what your story is. Why are you here? You know, like, what are you doing in our small little town that used to be all locals?
Like, what are you doing in our place?
Right.
So I understand the experience. You know what I mean? Like, it definitely, I get it.
Yeah.
You know, so I think there is such a thing as majority, you know, as majority privilege for sure.
Yeah.
But I also think that it's not fundamental to the problems in our culture. In our society, right? It's not the fundamental problem of, you know, disparity in the criminal justice system. I don't think has to do with, you know, in-group and out-group preference. I think the fundamental thing is economics. We've got, you know, a lot of poverty. We've got generational poverty.
Yeah.
Right? And we've got things like the war on drugs.
Yeah.
Which makes, you know, there's a huge black market incentive to engage in drug dealing and gang violence.
If you're poor, you're a lot more likely to commit crimes, whether they be robbery or selling drugs or taking drugs to keep from feeling the pain of being poor, you know?
Well, I mean, but
the black market incentive is a huge thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's like the thing, like to me, that's one of the major causes of disparity in the criminal justice system is generational poverty coupled with that kind of black market incentive, right? Anytime there's, kind of an entrenched poverty, if there's if there's a lucrative black market opportunity, like people with nothing to lose, like people who have something to lose don't want to break the law.
No.
Right? It's like, well, I don't want to do that because I've already got kind of a good thing going, so I might as well just.
But you're living in squalor.
Yeah, if you're living in
a really
hellish situation, you got nothing to lose.
Right.
It's like if I go to jail, at least I get 3 square meals a day.
Your freedom, but yes, you're right. If you go to jail, if you go to prison, you've got meals, you've got shelter, you've got shower. You've got all your basic necessities.
Yeah, like
so. Geez,
I'm not saying like people. Oh yeah, this will be great. I'll go to jail.
No,
but
I know.
If you're up against between a rock and a hard spot, it's a lot easier to say, well, I don't, I got nothing to lose. It's not like going to jail would be that much worse than
where I'm at right now. Yeah.
So it's a much easier decision to make.
Yeah. Plus you assume that you're going to do it right and you're going to keep out of the hands of the law and you're going to.
Everyone thinks everyone thinks they're going to stay ahead.
Yeah.
But or at least you hope.
Yeah.
Right. But like I think that those two things, right, are much more fundamental to the situation than like this idea that white people go, oh, I don't want to work with a black person. You know what I mean? Like I don't think that's like, I'm not saying that doesn't exist,
right.
Obviously.
Sure.
But
it's a lot less common these days.
Well, yeah, it's also really like the black market incentive for drugs, and which is basically the fuel of gang violence all over the world.
Yeah.
At least the Western world, through South America, everything. That black market incentive, because drugs are illegal here, and there's so much money and people want mind-altering substances, so they're going to procure them.
Right.
There's always going to be somebody willing to give you the money for it, you know what I mean? So if
there's real money to be made in that.
If you're poor and you've got nothing to lose,
right,
then obviously that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. And so, the fact that it's illegal doesn't negate the fact that in those situations it can seem very reasonable.
Yeah.
So I think that's more like the fundamental problem. I think to me that looks like.
I wonder how things would change if they did decriminalize all drugs. I mean, I'm sure there's even still a black market for marijuana in the states where it's legal, because you still have to have a license to sell. Yep. So I think it's still illegal to just buy from some rando on the street.
Yep.
But anyways, I was just wondering, I wonder how things like gang warfare and all that would change if drugs were decriminalized.
Yeah, well, it's a good point.
Or how it would affect people.
One of the reasons there's still a black market in some of the states where it's been legalized is that
it's expensive.
It's expensive.
The taxes are.
The taxes are expensive, and actually the bureaucracy of getting licensed and all that is also expensive and time consuming, right? So there are people who are already engaged in these activities, growing, whatever, right?
Right.
Who have been doing it on the black market forever. Yeah. And it's like, well, what do I do? Just kind of I'd like to start a business. You know what I mean? It's like.
Although I wonder if they're still going after people that are.
Yeah, I mean, the whole culture kind of changes, right? And the attitudes shift, and it's kind of like, well.
Because it's like, if it's decriminalized, you know, okay, we're in Colorado, it's legal here.
Yeah.
Do you think the cops are really like looking for people who are selling, especially if they're just selling small time, you know, just kind of like, because I think you're allowed like 6 plants per person in a house, something like that. I could be wrong, but it's somewhere around there. And that's probably not producing that much, but then, you know, you sell to a friend here and there. It's like, are cops really like looking for that?
No,
I doubt it.
I doubt it, right?
So I don't know. I wonder what it would be like if they decriminalized all drugs across the board, and made it easier.
Really
windy. I know, it's ridiculously windy. Obviously there's multiple topics we could talk about within this, like how things would change, because it's like, first of all, people would have easier access to clean drugs. You know what I mean? Like some of the things that are easily like laced with things and, you know, that can be dangerous. But that's a whole different topic. What I'm curious about is how would it affect the people who are impoverished that end up going into selling drugs? And on one hand, it would keep them out of jail because they, you know, and they could maybe sell drugs because they're legal. But at the same time, they're not going to be worth as much. You know what I mean? Drugs are not going to be worth as much if they're decriminalized. So I wonder how it would affect people, you know, that are living kind of in ghettos or just like more impoverished and like they've been selling drugs because that's a lucrative way to make money. But hey, like there's no threat of violence or imprisonment
it's like,
anymore.
What effects does it have on the black market economy?
Yeah, like on the economy, on the people who are, you
reliant
on that economy. So on one hand, they're not going to be making nearly as much, but there's also not going to be the threat of violence from police or you know, neighboring warring gangs.
And there's
not the threat of imprisonment.
And there's also the conflict resolution and dispute through legal means.
Yeah.
Right? So you can have contracts kind of settled by arbitration in court.
Yeah.
You know, you have access to the legal system, and that's the whole purpose for the legal system, is so that people don't have to be violent against each other to settle their conflicts. They can take it to a third party and have the government arbitrate that, right? So that's one of the biggest reasons for gang violence, because it's like, well,
I see, because they're doing.
You can't go to the police when somebody steals your pot,
or takes over your territory or something.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no. So if you or breaks an agreement. Let's say two people, two different groups have an agreement that you guys are going to handle that area, we're going to handle this area, and we're not going to kill each other. We're going to manage that, right? And then somebody breaks that agreement. Yeah. You can't go to the police and be like, they broke their agreement.
Right.
You know what I mean? We want monetary damages for the fact they broke this agrement.
Yeah.
It's like,
you have to manage that yourself. So what would happen if drugs became legal now?
Well, here's something that's interesting. I think in Portland, Oregon, I think, and I could be off my meds, I don't know, but I think I remember reading that in Portland what they did was they kind of said, look, which is, I think, brilliant, by the way, they said, if you've been breaking the law and doing this, you can be grandfathered in as a legit business.
Like for selling marijuana?
Yes.
Or any drug? Just marijuana, right?
Marijuana.
They've legalized marijuana.
Right. So, but like...
That's cool.
Right? They're like, okay, so we're going to legalize this thing, and we're going to kind of... There's this thing, I think it's called post facto. Like you can't prosecute someone for a post facto crime.
Sure.
Somebody's doing something and then you make it illegal and then you prosecute them for the fact that they were doing it.
Right.
You can't do that, right?
Sure.
But they kind of did the opposite of that, which is like, okay, this has been illegal, but we're going to make it legal so you're not in trouble for having done it in the past.
Yeah.
Right? And so they kind of grandfathered in the people who were already in the industry, and they said the black market that exists currently can just be legal now.
Wow.
And so they allowed all those operations to kind of just be legit instead.
That's kind of cool.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's probably the best way to do it.
Yeah, because otherwise you're taking, like...
And I think that's the way they should do it for...
drugs.
I think that's the way they should do it. If they're going to do it for drugs in general, especially if they're going to do it in places like Illinois, where they've got Chicago, places like New York, right, where they've got the big cities.
Are you talking specifically marijuana or all drugs?
Marijuana, but all drugs also, because, and the reason for that is that I think that kind of what happens is you get, it's kind of this really unfair kind of, it's pretty unfair. Mm-hmm. What ends up happening is you go, okay, well, we're going to make this legal, right? And then you say, okay, so all of the people who have been risking their lives to do this business while it was illegal are...
Now they're out of a job.
They're out of a job, and like we're giving permits to all these like, you know, kind of upper middle class, you know, bachelor's, you know, business students who...
Although...
These are people getting licensed and they're going to be able to grow this stuff. And it's like, whoa, hold on a second.
Right. One concern, though, that I would have is, like, with some of the drugs that are, like, a lot more likely to be laced with things or cut with certain things that make them more dangerous. They mess with you more. So my main concern would be with, like, heroin or cocaine that, you know, if they're going to allow people, if they're going to legalize them, and let people that have been, you know, selling them up until now continue to sell them, I don't know. Like, I guess I'd want them to be a little bit regulated more and be like, okay, we're going to test your products.
Sure.
And if it is found to be cut with anything, like, you have to get rid of that. Like, you have to, you know, like, you can't be selling stuff that's cut with things. You can't be selling stuff that's laced with things. It has to be pure. It has to be, not that those drugs are safe even even
but
still.
You can't be like putting Drano in stuff.
No kidding,
right?
No kidding. Yeah. Like, if they're going to be allowing people to sell heroin and cocaine, like, apparently there's gonna, well, I don't know if it's actually happening for sure, but I heard that in Denver they might be having a location that people can come and shoot up with clean needles, clean product, all of that.
Yep.
Which I don't know if I agree with that or not. You know, I know of people who have heroin addicted children or friends or loved ones that are probably like, what? No.
Right.
But I am kind of like, well, I guess if people are going to use, it'd be best if they were using clean products. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that if they're addicted as it is, it might be nice for them to know that they have a place to go where they're not going to be dying from a dirty needle, or, you know, I mean, you can still overdose if it's a pure product.
The other thing about that is that you can start to get numbers, and you can start to get like research. You can start to get data.
The other thing I was thinking is if you have resources there, like I think, was it in the Netherlands where they had a facility where people could go to use drugs clean, you know, in a cleanly manner, in a sanitary manner, but upstairs they also had a guy who was like a counselor who could help you get clean if you wanted to get clean. Right. So they had resources for people that, you know, had been addicts or were addicts, but that they wanted to get clean and get help, you know? So I feel like it was kind of coinciding, and I'm like, that's actually kind of smart.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like, we're not like just making you go cold turkey, not that you could, it's really dangerous, but we've got resources for both. Like, you continue to use until you're ready to kind of get clean, and we'll help you get clean.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's definitely, you know, there's a whole clusterfuck of problems with you know, these ideas, but I mean,
there's no easy answers.
We have to be willing to face difficult problems as a society, and I think that I think there's a lot of people who would instinctively, you know, kind of lash out at the idea that we should allow people who have previously been classified as criminals to to maintain their business in a legit fashion.
That's interesting.
But I think it's fair, because I think that a lot of I think that our drug laws are racist by and large to begin with. Not that they're like they were literally put in place to you know, kind of limit the
Chinese
the migration of Chinese and Mexicans, and you know, like, so
because they were like bringing in opium, and then they
they had opium, and
they were into opium, and
it was a thing, and then, you know, there were South Americans and the marijuana was more common in minority communities, and so it was like it was just it was another way to control minorities. You go, oh, look at that. Yeah. It's kind of like, it's one of the reasons it was one of the things that kind of really pushed me towards, like, realizing that really pushed me towards libertarianism a lot, because it was kind of like, it's like jaywalking. Like, jaywalking, is that really a crime? Yeah. It's like a person walks across a street. Yeah. That's a crime.
Not at a crosswalk.
That's a crime, really? Right? So, why is that a crime? Well, that's a crime so that police can basically walk up to people and just go, "Oh, excuse me, sir. I can." It's an avenue for police to control. Right. Right. So it's like, I see somebody walk across the street, and they're not in a crosswalk. It's like, there's lots of little laws like that. People break all the time without even knowing.
First of all, it's a way for them to make money especially if they're not making a lot of money elsewhere.
Right.
But revenue. Then they can use these stupid, piddly little laws and make a little money off people.
Right. Well, so there's revenue that comes in through these little laws, but it's also just like an avenue. It's like if you took all these stupid little laws off the books, right, then police have to actually wait to see if somebody's doing something serious, right? Right. They have to wait for, oh, well, we have reason to believe that you committed this crime, and right? As it stands now, police can basically walk up to just about anybody and they can go, your tail light is out, your shoes untied, you cross, whatever, just something. And then it's like, there's a reason for them to question you and detain you, give you a ticket, and have their way with you, basically.
Well, and they can make it up. They can just say, like, oh, I don't think you stopped fully at that stop sign. Right. Not that they do that often. I don't know, maybe.
But all these kind of like really minor infractions that's exactly what they are. They're ways for the state to kind of, it's ways for state to
clamp down on
to
the
kind
people.
They're doorways into your private into your rights.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're all these. It's just a tactic. It's like, okay, so jaywalking is illegal. Why is jaywalking illegal? Because if jaywalking is illegal, you can pretty much walk up to anybody and be like, oh yeah, I don't think you were in the crosswalk when you crossed that street over there, and then it's like.
Now I don't think they really enforce it in most places, but like in cities, they're more likely to enforce it. You know what I mean? Well, in cities where there's more people and like people do it all the time.
Yeah, that's the other thing. People do it all the time.
Yeah.
Right? People. That's the important point to get.
Yeah.
It's a kind of thing that is illegal that people do all the time because it's obviously not a big deal.
Right, and unless a cop is really like, he wants to stop that person for some reason,
right,
or he's just feeling in a particular mood to mess with someone that's doing that. Right. Most of the time you don't get in trouble for jaywalking.
Right. Which is exactly the point. It's one of these little laws that creates basically discretionary power for police to stop whoever they want.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's well, anyway, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Because that's how systems of power operate.
Yeah.
And that's how cultural problems like racism operate through systems of power that aren't racist. Right? Like like the fact that jaywalking is illegal isn't racist.
No.
But the fact that more black people will get stopped for jaywalking than white people,
you're assuming,
right?
I mean,
but what I'm saying is, I don't know. It's true. I don't know. But the point is, if you have those kinds of laws in a society where culturally there's a bunch of racist white cops, right? Well, that's a problem because lots of people jaywalk, right? And if they've got the discretionary power to just kind of say, okay, well, I can bother anyone I want to for jaywalking, but I don't have to bother people for jaywalking. Right. Then it's like, okay, well, the white people go jaywalking and have a nice day, and the black people get bothered by for it, and they get arrested.
That's not the case, but I'm sure with some cops it is.
Right. This is the problem with laws in general, and especially petty laws, right? Is that it gives expansive discretionary power to people, even when the system isn't racist,
Individuals can be. There's
individuals who operate the system can be, and they have discretionary power, right? So you've got, like, again, obviously, it's not illegal for white. It's not legal for white people to jaywalk, but illegal for black people to jaywalk.
Right.
So the system of it's illegal to jaywalk is fair.
Right.
Right.
But the way in which it is being enforced
could be
racist.
Racist, especially if you're in an area that, like, where there's culturally prevalent prejudice. Mm-hmm. Right. So,
like Chicago.
Well, or, you know, people say this about the Deep South, right? So
sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right? Perhaps. Right? But to me, the answer to that is not, you know, like, let's find ways to make it illegal to be racist. Like, obviously we should, and
we should just have less laws.
We should have less laws, and then it's like, it's harder for racist people to abuse their power.
Stupid laws, yeah.
You know, I don't, that's again, it's like the fundamental American ethic is that power is something that people will abuse,
right?
And so we should have as little of it over other people as possible. You know, that's the whole concept.
Yeah.
You know, of American freedom is
but we rarely get rid of laws.
Oh,
you know
we
what
almost
I mean?
never
like,
get rid of laws.
We're constantly adding new little laws here and there, and it's like, how is anyone supposed to keep up with all the laws that are on the books?
Yeah,
you know what I
it's
mean?
pretty rough.
And like, we know most of the basic ones, but there's plenty that I'm sure we have no clue are there, and you know what I mean? And then at any point, a cop could be like, "Oh, you just broke the law," and you're like, "What?"
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm definitely for reducing
the overhead.
The
legislative overhead.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. I think that that's, again, one of the. I think that's one of the ways that freedom is a better answer to these kinds of problems, where it's like, if it's not illegal to jaywalk, and it's not illegal to do all these little petty stupid things, then we have fewer justifications for bothering people for racist reasons. Right. So maybe you do have a racist cop, right? He's got like just this like whole book full of codes and ordinances and all these things that are just laying there, and he's like, oh, I think I'll use disorderly conduct today, or, you know, oh, here's another one. I'll just, oh, this person walked across the grass. This person walked, you know, like, just
this person
whatever.
Spit on the sidewalk.
Spit on the side. Oh, look, they threw their cigarette butt out, you know, like on the street. That's littering, you know, like we've got all these little, like, it's just it's a plethora of reasons to go and bother someone because you're a racist asshole.
Well, or just bother someone. I mean, they might not even be racist, they might just enjoy the power of being able to mess with people and take away their freedom, or give them a ticket or whatever.
Right. And so whatever whatever negative intentions might be, and I'm not saying that like this is the way that police are.
No, I'm not.
But whatever negative intentions might manifest themselves in an individual who happens to hold a position of power like a police officer, if they have fewer excuses, like it's like a bouquet of excuses to be a shitty person.
Right.
You know what I mean? You have to be like Superman to not use those ever. You know what I mean? For your own stupid, asshole reasons.
Yeah.
Like if somebody just kind of like gave you like a whole bucket full of, here's justification to be shitty to people, right? And you're like, and then they were like, don't abuse it. You know what I mean? Like that's basically what we've got, right?
Yeah.
So I have a lot of respect for police who are able to resist those temptations, because it's almost a superhuman feat, to have all of this authority and all of these different ways that you could totally screw someone, and to not use it even when you're in a bad mood, or even when they're being, when they're being difficult,
right?
To just not abuse people with those powers is insane.
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for cops that are good cops, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Because as we've seen psychologically, like when you give someone the authority over others, it is so easy for them to abuse it. Remember watching, was it the Stanford prison experiment?
Yeah.
Oh my God, if you guys have not seen that, the Stanford Prison Experiment. It is definitely worth a watch. It's disturbing, to say the least.
Yep.
So...
Just a few days, and it was like...
Oh, yeah. Like, already the people who were put in the... Like, arbitrarily put in positions of power over the so-called prisoners, and it was an experiment. It was all, like, fake, but it became real quick.
Real quick.
And it's just... It really is an interesting look into the human psyche.
Yeah. So yeah, and group mentality and just like team building and this kind of justification of violence and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's another one of those things where I think the fundamental problem isn't that our system is racist, it's that our system can be abused by racists.
Right.
Right? And the more powerful and pervasive the system is, the more powerful and pervasive that makes racists who get into those positions of power.
Yeah.
Right? So that abuse becomes much more severe with every additional layer of bureaucracy and control, and this kind of busybodying, it's against ordinances to have a flag that is this tall in your front yard, or whatever, like all these stupid little,
or like there's inclement weather, you got to take your flag down,
whatever these kind of like busybody ordinances are that are trying to like maintain some sort of there's so much of that, and you could say, well, if we just let everyone throw their cigarette butts on the ground, there'd be, just be, garbage everywhere. If we didn't have ordinances against littering, it'd just be like, well, is that true? How many people get tickets for littering?
Probably not that many people get caught.
Probably
I mean,
not.
There's very high fines, especially on highways, but people still do it.
Yeah. But I'm telling you, the vast majority of people don't litter because, like, we publicly shamed people about littering. Yeah. Basically.
Now, it happens, and... I've seen people litter, but...
This is a weird thing, though. It's like, I think that the public shaming about littering, right?
Is almost worse than
better. It's a better solution than making littering illegal.
Right, because it's more like it hurts the ego if you're shamed by someone for something.
Well,
or people don't want to be shamed.
Right.
So.
But then, okay, so then we say, well, if we're going to shame people for it, we should make it, we should make it illegal because it's a bad thing to do. It's like, no. You shouldn't make it illegal. You should shame people for it. Make a better society that voluntarily doesn't do this kind of stuff because they don't want to be shamed for being shitty people.
Right.
But we also don't want to give people in power an excuse to abuse people. Like, I saw you throw that cigarette butt on the ground.
And to steal from us, basically.
Right? Like, it's not a good idea. So making things illegal is actually, like, it creates its own problems. Whereas if you say, look, what we're going to do is we're going to culturally say this is not a good thing, and we're just going to convince each other, we're going to have commercials and ad campaigns and say, it's garbage to do this. You shouldn't throw this out. It's bad people do that.
And people assume that if there's a law that somehow means people aren't going to do it.
Yeah, it's
or
weird.
that it somehow keeps people from doing it, and it's like, no.
You know what I love? I love when I see those YouTube videos where it's like somebody threw their. I've seen a couple of these now where there's like somebody with a helmet cam on their bike, and they see someone throw like a McDonald's bag or something out the window.
Yeah.
And the person on the motorcycle grabs it, chases him down the road, waits till he gets to a stoplight, knocks on the window, and they roll down the window, they throw the garbage back in there. You know what I mean? You see stuff like this, and you go, ha ha! Everyone's like, yeah, good, get them, because nobody wants to live in a society full of garbage.
No kidding.
And everyone thinks that person a piece of garbage for doing that. It's your responsibility. Find a garbage can, throw it out. Yeah. You know what I mean? Put it somewhere where it's not ruining everyone else's property. And
the beauty of our world.
Right. Like, do your part. Don't be a bastard.
Yeah.
Right. We all kind of agree on that, and it's like we see these, you see that kind of stuff. Everyone cheers. It's like, he got what was coming to him, right?
And it's almost better than if a cop had issued him a ticket. You know what I mean? Because it's like it's more like a display of like, you're a shitty person. Here's your garbage.
Yeah,
put it where it belongs.
Right.
I don't know how, but that just seems like that's probably much more of a. I mean, it might just piss the guy off, and he might still do it.
Sure.
I'm not saying that that's going to necessarily change someone. but it seems to me a better way.
It does, though. It does. And this is actually something that Gandhi pointed out, right? Was like this idea that if somebody is like, if somebody's being bad to you, right? Like, you can shame them into changing, right? So it's like when they went to burn their registration cards or whatever.
Yes.
Right? And like they burn the registration card, and like the cop's like hitting him, and he just picks it up and he like goes to do it again. The cop hits him again, and eventually it's just kind of like, God, this is obviously brutal and it's obviously not worth it.
Right.
It gets through to your psyche, like, this man is just peacefully trying to do this thing.
He's peacefully protesting.
Right.
He's
not doing anything harmful.
Right.
Like, he's literally just, this is, a piece of paper and he's going to burn it. It's not going to hurt anybody.
Right.
And, I'm like breaking his arm with this baton. You know what I mean? It's like, you feel ashamed of yourself. There's something to that.
Yeah.
And you kind of go, oh, I shouldn't be like this.
Yeah.
Like, it literally, like, there's something in us. There's a conscience within us that if you can highlight, if you can make people take notice of their conscience, that it changes things. It's real.
Yeah.
It's real.
You're gonna cry a little.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's real goodness in people, and we if we're reminded of it, then it manifests and it can flourish in society. But when we make laws, what we're actually doing is we're giving more people we're creating a system in which there's more room and incentive for abuse.
Well, from from police.
From police,
the other thing is, it's like,
from politicians, from business people.
The reason people don't want to do these things is not because they think they're morally wrong, but because there's the threat of violence or fines or whatever. Sure. It's like, we're not actually changing people's moral compass by creating laws.
That's true.
We're just creating like a threat of violence or imprisonment.
That's
true.
What I mean? And that threat of violence or imprisonment is in itself a problem. Right? Like, so one problem is that, we're not changing anyone's mind. We're just saying that by, fiat of violence, we're going to force people not to do something, right? That's one.
Yeah.
So there's the fact that culturally we're not growing. We're kind of stunting our growth culturally in a way. The other side of that is that the threat of violence and abuse or imprisonment or fines or whatever is power that can be abused.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
It's like it's like, okay, I don't think toddlers should have guns. Right? But so that's kind of like the premise of American society, right? It's like we think that it's dangerous for human beings to have power over each other. Fundamentally. Right? If human beings have power over each other, they tend to abuse it. That's fundamentally our kind of orienting thing, right? That's why we've got a system of checks and balances. It's like we don't trust anyone to have power, right? So it's like everyone has to be able to be taken down by everyone else, so that we can kind of like just not, so that we can eliminate these abuses of power. We've got balance. At least we've got people to kind of fight against them, and putting power in the in Congress and the judiciary and the president, right? So it's like there's this constant fight about power, right? We're utilizing, in a way, it's what's genius about it, is we're utilizing the kind of natural, kind of will to power against itself in a way.
Sure.
Right? We've set up a structure in which it's like there's always somebody who can override you and take you down, and so it's like it doesn't work unless we agree.
Yeah, I don't know why that kind of reminds me of the idea of like being in Wyoming. Like, everyone has guns there.
Yep.
So like no one's gonna mess with you because it's highly likely that you have a gun. So I don't know. It's a little similar. I feel like there's a little bit of a parallel there. It's like,
it's
if you know that someone else, I don't know, like,
it's true. Yeah, there's a fun, and then that's why people on the right are so fundamentally tied to the Second Amendment because, it's not about oh I want to have a gun so I can shoot a bunch of rounds, yay.
Right.
It's like it's not target shooting and deer hunting.
And you hope
it's
to
like
not have to ever use that.
Freedom.
You hope to never have to use that against a human being.
Right.
They might be hunters. They might do that, and I know lots of people don't agree with that. But I mean, most people that own guns for protection or hunting, both, like they hope to never have to use that gun against a human, but they'd rather have that gun and not need it than not have the gun and need it. Yeah.
Right. Than need it and not have it.
So, and I mean, I'm kind of in agreement. I don't own any guns at the moment, but I probably will one day.
So, so like it's fundamentally tied to freedom. The idea that, the first gun control laws in America were to keep guns out of the hands of, freed slaves. Right? To keep black people on plantations. That was the first gun control laws in America.
Oh wow.
Right? Like it's illegal to give, guns to black people. Like that was and then, we saw echoes of that in the 60s when the Black Panthers walked into the some government, I can't remember what the thing is, like the Capitol in California. And they had guns. They had shotguns and rifles, and
did they all have permits for open carry, or
you didn't need one because it's a right.
Okay.
It's not a privilege granted to you by the government. Okay. It's your right to have guns.
Well, yes. Right? But most states have
infringed on that right.
Have infringed by requiring you to apply for a permit and
Well, we grew up in Illinois, so Illinois is a very anti-gun state. Yeah. That's not actually true. Your perception of it isn't true because most states don't require you to have a permit.
Certain states like Illinois are intense, and especially if you live near the city. Now, my dad was able to get a permit, but it's one of those things. It's not like, our old neighbor could carry. She had an open carry permit. She could carry a little pistol on her hip, and routinely did so. And I think mostly it was to be able to shoot little animals because they got into her garden, which was her livelihood. And then I don't know what kind of permit my dad got. I don't think he was able to just transport it unless in a locked box. It's very strict.
It's very strict in Illinois.
Very strict.
It's very strict in Illinois.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, then we should probably stop.
Yeah.
But
and we've gotten way off topic.
We've gotten way off topic. But I think that we started talking about. We started off, we said, Happy Martin Luther King Day. And when we talked about content of character versus color of the skin. And we've gotten into individual rights pretty deeply. And we're talking about, gun rights, even in the fact that the first and the history of gun control has been incredibly racist. The places in the nation where guns are the hardest to get and the most illegal. I shouldn't say hardest to get, but certainly the most illegal, where there's the highest, penalties and fines and most red tape and bureaucracy preventing common people, individuals, from getting their hands on guns legally, are places that are have high populations of minorities.
And in those places, I think, I don't know, it's a tough one, but I feel like plenty of people that live in cities would like to be able to legally own a gun to protect themselves. I'm sure lots of normally law-abiding citizens own guns that are illegal in the city or in cities because, I'm sorry, but it's dangerous. It's dangerous to live in cities, most cities, but especially Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, you know what I mean? And so, I don't blame them.
I think just on that note, before we sign off here, I want to give because if you're at all interested in the racist history of gun control or guns in terms of guns in the black community and in our cities, check out a wonderful man named Toure. His YouTube channel is Black Guns Matter, and he has been on tour all around the nation, teaching black people mostly, but people in urban areas in general, about their gun rights and about the racist history of gun control and how to handle weapons. He's he's kind of taken a kind of a liberal sex ed approach to gun violence in inner cities. It's like the liberal sex ed approach is, kids are going to have sex, right? They're going to do it.
So teach them how to do it safely.
Right, and responsibly, right? And so he's gone into the inner cities and been like, look, there is gun violence. There are guns. These kids are going to get their hands on guns. They're all over the place.
Right.
Even though they're deeply illegal in all these cities, by the way, they're all over the place, right?
Yeah.
These kids are going to find them. They're going to get their hands on them. They're going to have to deal with them. So he's teaching kids in urban areas how to handle guns safely.
Nice.
Right? Trigger finger discipline, keeping the safety on, this kind of stuff. Don't point anything you don't plan to, shoot.
Yeah.
How to load and unload safely, all this kind of stuff. Like he's going in there and teaching them so we don't have stupid accidents, right?
Yeah.
And at least some of the to kind of instill some respect for their rights and for the power of a gun in the first place and some responsibility around it, since it's there and they're going to deal with it anyway, right? So I mean, I think what he's doing is really cool. Black Guns Matter. Check him out. He's a badass. Definitely recommend following him on Facebook and on YouTube and Twitter. He's someone that you should donate to and check out if you're interested in the Second Amendment or civil rights in general.
Cool.
So. And you can follow us if you're interested in these conversations on Facebook and Twitter, Just Us Chatting. Subscribe to our channel and get those notifications. We try to live stream most mornings. We haven't been doing it every day, but pretty regularly.
Yeah.
So anyway,
thanks for watching.
Yeah, that's it for us for today, I guess. Cool. So we'll talk to you again maybe tomorrow, and have a great day and enjoy your freedom and your day off on this. On this holiday that recognizes an incredible man. So let's just appreciate everything that he's done for all of us.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Boom.
Ciao.